What's up, everybody? It's your boy Joshua Freeman, and welcome back to Joshua vs. Movies, Infusion Edition. I'm here with Brian Carey and Desmond Tillman, and today we're looking at Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Episode 3 came out in 2005 and was directed by George Lucas. The movie stars Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, and Ian McDermott. But I think we're all set. So without further ado, fellas, let's get to the review. Let's see what we come up with.
Fight!
Lock onto him, R2. Master, General Grievous' ship is directly ahead.
Oh, I see it. Oh, this is going to be easy. Oddball, do you copy?
Copy, Red Leader.
Mark my position. Form your squad up behind me.
We're on your tail, General Kenobi.
They're all over me! Hit the front line!
I'm gonna go help them out.
No!
No, they are doing their job.
Then we can do ours.
Missiles, pull up! We got him, R2.
I'm hit. Anakin?
I see them.
Buzz droids.
R4, be careful. You have a... Oh, dear. Get to the command ship. Get the Chancellor. I'm running out of tricks here. Hold your fire. You're not helping here.
I agree, bad idea.
Can't see a thing.
My cockpit's fogging.
Get out of here. There's nothing more you can do.
I'm not leaving without you, Master. Watch out. The General's command ship is dead ahead.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this. R2, locate the Chancellor.
The Chancellor's signal is coming from right there.
I sense a trap.
Next move?
Spring the trap.
So as far as the opening of the movie, in the dialogue that came up, the monologue. So I would have really liked to have seen the setup of the movie with Grievous acquiring Palpatine, like Palpatine's ultimate role with Grievous and him actually working for him. But I think that'd be really interesting to add another bit of scenery to the movie. But it is a 2-hour film, 2+ hour film, might I add, so you can't have everything. So I do understand it, but I just would have liked to see more, especially since Grievous is a extremely interesting character if you know anything about the extended universe. But as far as the opening goes, I thought this was great. It was very true to how last movie started. Episode 2, how it was like it threw you right into the mix of it. And I kind of wanted to talk to you guys, especially about the spaceship scene when they were first flying through there. What were your thoughts on CGI compared to episodes 1 and 2? Because I've seen a steady evolution, but what are your thoughts?
Just for me, I do remember seeing the first shot, and I thought visually the first shot looked really good. I thought the visual effects in this scene looked really good, like with all the space battle and everything like that. I didn't have any problems. It was never a time I looked at it, I was like, that looks fake or anything like that. So, and I thought it was fine, and that was before I saw that it came out 2005, which I thought the visual effects would be pretty modern. Yeah, pretty good by now. So, yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I liked it. And as for the overall scene, I thought it was good too. I like how you said it jumps you right into the action, kind of like how the last movie did. Mm-hmm. And of course, you have the opening where it shows you what's going to happen, what they're doing, like they're rescuing Palpatine and everything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. It was pretty good. But I think what you were saying about General Grievous, like I guess you said meeting Palpatine, or
What the whole premise is, they're supposed to be rescuing Palpatine from Grievous.
Yeah.
He captured him.
Yeah.
Captured him.
like how he did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So under that guise, I would have liked to see like how they would set up, whether it was, I don't know the level of involvement Grievous knew was going on because he was an underling of the Separatists and the Sith and all that. But I would have liked to see that as an opportunity to expand on him as a character. Because like there's a lot of things that don't get explained. Like later on when you see him, like he's coughing. They never talk about why he's coughing. They don't give you any idea who he is.
Yeah. You
just know that he's a droid that coughs, and it's like, okay, so why is the droid coughing? Well, he's not exactly a droid all the way. But
yeah.
So that kind of, it could have added some color in that fashion.
What do you think?
No, essentially the original query as far as like the CGI, I think it looks great. I love how this episode is more or less like peak starfighter piloting. Like it's immersive, it's cool. The only thing that I don't care for is that Obi-Wan keeps coming off as this novice pilot. Like Obi-Wan is actually a great pilot, and it's like every time we see him in a situation of distress, it's like it's just panic and anxiety, or it's like I'd much rather not.
They did throw in a little hint like he was scared of flying, or night flying or something like that. So.
Exactly, he's an excellent pilot. So that's like the only thing I don't like, because it's a contradiction to like some of the other stories of Obi-Wan. But nevertheless, I think it's like I said, it's peak starfighter piloting for Star Wars. I don't think there's anything in any of the other 5 movies that rivals this one when it comes to piloting. Like
I agree.
You think that was just an add-on because it seems like he has a little bit more one-liners in this movie.
Oh, I see it. Oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah, but I mean, Obi-Wan is he's a minimalist. The literal definition of like a minimalist when it comes to the Jedi, like he likes to look for the most efficient way to do things, not the most effective. And him being in, starfights with droids probably isn't the most ideal, use of his time as a Jedi. But it's more or less, as he said, even when he was in the situation of distress, the mission. So he's more or less always willing to follow the council's order by any means necessary, even if that does involve fighting a whole bunch of, pointless droids for the sake of, saving the Republic, and in this case, saving the Chancellor, and, finding General Grievous's main hope.
Fight!
Round 2.
Chancellor.
You all right?
Count Dooku. You won't get away this time, Dooku.
Sense great fear in you, Skywalker.
Good, Anakin, good. Kill him.
What?
Kill him now.
Kill him now.
I shouldn't.
Do it.
That's all it took.
He was too dangerous to be kept alive.
I shouldn't have done that. It's not the Jedi way.
It is only natural. He cut off your arm, and you wanted revenge. Now we must leave before more security droids arrive. Anakin, there's no time. Leave him, or we'll never make it.
His fate will be the same as ours.
Yo, this.
This was a 16.
Yeah, I love this scene. I like how it shows the influence that Palpatine has on Anakin. He's just like, kill him. Kill him.
I'm not supposed to do that. Once you say so.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was. I liked it. Yeah, how'd you guys feel?
I think this is another stellar scene from the movie. It was really like the very subtle comedy of the original movies prior to the Disney acquisition. Like even with Palpatine, jumping and making whatever the sound was, like my granddad when the Dallas Cowboys are down in the fourth quarter, he wasn't making a comeback. That's what he was like. Yeah, I like this with the amount of foreshadowing that goes in the movie.
How'd you feel? I've seen this movie way more times than I would like to admit, and I think watching it cut up like this is perfect to allow you to dissect because there's so many things that are happening in this short 4-minute sequence that we want to pay attention to, and it's a bit of irony. So if we fast forward to episode 6 when Palpatine is Emperor and he's watching the battle between the Republic and the Empire in space in Death Star 2, it's the opening scene of this here when he's watching the Republic and the Separatists fight, and he turnarounds when Anakin and Obi-Wan walk in. And then another thing is that another situational irony here is that Dooku realizes Palpatine's plan once he is about to be killed. Same way Darth Maul witnessed or figured out Palpatine's plan once he got casted to the side. And I think that, Dooku gives that face because Dooku is, the apprentice of the Sith ruler too. He realizes right then and there that Anakin is who he's always wanted to be, his apprentice. And this is essentially the culmination or the beginning of sewing him into that Sith role. Mm-hmm. And the other thing here is that I think George Lucas subtly wrote it. The way you defeat Dooku's style is just by brute force. So we notice when Anakin was far more aggressive here. Mm-hmm. He was very aggressive in episode 2, but he was very meticulous with his aggression. And he understood that the best way to defeat Dooku was to overwhelm him. So you kind of saw that last sequence where he was swinging wildly, and it kind of foiled or fooled Dooku into what essentially resulted in his hands getting cut off. And then the third ironic, or it's more or less coincidence. You want to say it's irony? I think it's more irony. The ship that they're on is called the Invisible Hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a very, I guess you could say, rich in detail packed 4 minutes. And I think if you are familiar with the Star Wars franchise, like you appreciate, subtleties like that because they can go miss if you're just casually watching it. But
I didn't pick up on the more aggressive style of combat was the key to beating the style that Dooku used. Yeah. And so my question was, do you think that was after, because it seemed to be that Anakin seemed to get the upper hand after Dooku had made the comment about him not tapping into his emotions. Do you think it was a consequence of that?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, man. I think Anakin is the perfect contradiction of what a Jedi can be. And I think that, everything is really falling into Palpatine's hands as far as his eventual, move, or I guess you could say ingratiating himself with the dark side of the Force because, him being married to Padme is, it's in violation of the Jedi Order. Him killing the Tusken Raiders, it's in violation of the Jedi Order. Like, he's tapped into his dark side. Palpatine has sensed it, but the same way he sensed the dark side in Dooku when Dooku was still a Jedi, he is waiting for the natural progression to the dark side instead of just outright enticing him, like pulling him to it. He's waiting for him to essentially say, like, okay, this is the perfect moment to reveal myself when you are in need of me the most, and he's waiting for that, which we see in this movie. Did the same thing to Dooku.
Oh, and there's a lot of amputation in these films.
Oh yeah,
like I don't think
could you classify as a fetish for George Lucas?
Amputation fetish.
Yeah, I mean all but one. Episode no, every single Star Wars movie has an amputation of some sort.
Like a fetish. But I have a question. You mentioned Anakin and Padme, being married and everything like that, and of course they show that, and of course they reveal that she's not pregnant and everything.
Something wonderful has happened. Annie, I'm pregnant.
One thing I wanted to ask is, can nobody sense that she's pregnant with like Anakin's baby? Like, like nobody on the Jedi Council isn't that supposed to be a thing?
I don't know. I know they can sense other Force sensitive beings that have tapped into the Force. That's why in the first movie, Darth Maul, he suppressed that because he wanted to sneak up on him, drop on him.
Yeah.
But
it's not like anybody suppressing Padme being pregnant.
Yeah, and then also Luke, who is the son of Padme and Anakin, he's Force sensitive. Like he's like how early can they detect the midichlorians?
Yeah, that was what I was going to say, is that they never really take up a Padawan at birth. They take them very young, like
3 years, right?
Yeah, within the first few years of their life. So I don't think anyone can detect that there. But another, I guess you could say, to play play the other side of that argument, no one knows that they're married. So they see Padme as being pregnant. She could be pregnant from another senator or another, whoever she's dating at the time. She was relatively one of the quiet senators. Like, she was very rebellious in her sense of what we would consider as the modern day, I don't want to say modern day conservative, but she was very anti government overreach. And so she was well known, but she still had the private aspect of her life as a royal, which I think she, of course, became just a senator, but she still had a very private life.
Also, something in the question for this: how much time transpired between episodes 2 and 3?
That's another question I got.
That I do not know. I don't want to say 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is 10 because he trains Ahsoka between these two movies.
Okay, 10 years. You sure? I thought it was 10 years between the first.
It is 10 years between the first and second, but I just not know that one.
Just for the sake of accuracy as well, I did look up how much time transpired between episodes 2 and 3.
3 years.
It's only 3 years.
So having me over here strong.
You looked that stuff up. You just didn't Google the question. Yeah. He was going down the world.
Yeah, because there was one that I had looked at last time when we were watching episode 1, and the question came up, and I was looking at Anakin's age, and I was trying to find that particular one because I could easily just look at the difference in between his age. But yeah, you're right. The canon timeline has it 3 years, which is
surprisingly short.
Yeah, very short.
Fight!
Round 3.
Yes, Lord Sidious.
I suggest you move the Separatist leaders to Mustafar. Soon I will have a new apprentice. One far younger and more powerful.
Anna, I want to have our baby back home on Naboo.
You're so beautiful.
What's bothering you?
It was a dream. Like the ones I used to have about my mother just before she died. And it was about you. You die in childbirth.
And the baby?
I don't know. I won't let this one become real.
Do you think Obi-Wan might be able to help us?
We don't need his help.
How do you guys feel about this scene?
Just the beginning of the end.
You said beginning of the end.
Yeah. It's the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the death of Anakin Skywalker, and
I wonder how many visions does he have? Is it just of people that he really cares about, and it's always of like death?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a bit of Palpatine. Like I don't know if you've seen any of the Disney Star Wars, but essentially all of those characters are Palpatine, and he is manipulating a lot of the events to. I mean, he's just manipulating a lot of the events. I think that's the best way to put it.
Just to get him to be his apprentice.
In the prior movies, yes, for Ben Scott or Ben Solo, and I think in this case it's the same thing, that he is manipulating his dreams and giving Anakin these premonitions that are not set in stone, but the way he chooses to act on them out of his fear and essentially his aggression as well, leads them to come true. Like they are premonitions that are provoked by the dark side, and if you choose to embrace the dark, it's more than likely to come true. But if you just let, I guess you could say, for the sake of Star Wars terms, like if you let the universe play it out, or if you let the light play it out, then there is almost like a 50-50. Like I guess it's the philosophy. The philosophy. Well, it's just like 50-50. They either will happen or it won't. Yeah. But it's the philosophy that the future is forever moving. It's always evolving. Like there is no set. There's no set plan.
It's a prediction of the current moment.
Yeah. It seems like though, if that was true about his mom's, if Palpatine did it about his mom, it seemed like it would. That was more set in stone. It seemed like she was going to die there because she got kidnapped.
Possibly, but at the same time, if she was
he
bound,
didn't really have an influence on it, did he?
If she was bound to die regardless, him going and killing was his first turn to the dark side. Mm-hmm. That was his first instance of embracing the dark side. So it's one of those things to where once you trigger, in this case, if Palpatine is the manipulator of these premonitions to, force Anakin to act in a way that is outside of his best interest, then yes, he needs to trigger these events to see how Anakin will react. And if he embraces the dark, which he does each time he has these premonitions, then it is his, untimely, I guess you could say, trek to the dark side.
There's a scene later when Palpatine finally reveals himself who he actually is, Sidious, that they're talking about the premonitions. So that's
and
what
Anakin never tells him about the premonitions.
Exactly. That's what makes me think that your theory is correct.
Yeah.
You did mention the transitions. Did you like the transitions or not? I saw that the first one where they were transitioning from the ship prior to this scene. Mm-hmm. I like that one. It's like they had the building and then it just transitioned when the screen panned left or right, whatever. Mm-hmm. But this one in particular, it had like the random squares on the screen. Yeah. That was a little bit strange and I didn't care for it. But it's not enough to detract from the movie. It was just weird.
Yeah. George Lucas does it a lot in these movies, well, in the first three movies, because it's the first three movies I actually saw. But it's like him switching scenes a lot, and the transitions, usually it's like just a swipe over or something like that. So it's something I did notice. I don't have a problem with it. That one,
it's just his cinematography style.
Yeah, it's whatever.
He was just bored, screwing around with the effects on it.
Let's think of a better way instead of just switching it. Let's have a little cool transition, So because it does do a lot of back and forth between this is happening because a lot of stuff is happening at the same time. So mm-hmm. So I understand it. It's not bad. It doesn't distract me. But yeah.
Fight.
Round 4.
Premonitions? These visions you have.
They're of pain, suffering.
Yourself you speak of? Or someone you know?
Someone.
The fear of loss is a path to the dark side. Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force.
What must I do, Master Yoda?
Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
I'm sorry, I was held up. I have no excuse.
In short, they are going very well. The Senate is expected to vote more executive powers to the Chancellor today.
Well, that can only mean less deliberating and more action. Is that bad?
All of this is unusual, and it's making me feel uneasy.
I need your help, son.
What do you mean?
I'm appointing you to be my personal representative on the Jedi Council.
Me? A master? If the council elects its own members, they'll never accept this.
I think they will. They need you.
Disturbing is this move by Chancellor Palpatine.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker. Yoda will take a battalion of clones to reinforce the Wookiees on Kashyyyk. May the Force be with us all.
It's never been done in the history of the Jedi. It's insulting.
Oh, calm down, Anakin. You have been given a great honor. To be on the council at your age, it's never happened before. Your friendship with Chancellor Palpatine seems to have paid off.
There's nothing to do with this.
Anakin, I am on your side. I didn't want to put you in this situation.
What situation?
The council wants you to report on all the Chancellor's dealings. They want to know what he's up to.
That's treason.
We are at war, Anakin.
He befriended me. He's watched out for me ever since I arrived here.
That is why you must help us.
You're asking me to do something against the Jedi Code. Why are you asking this of me?
The council is asking you.
That's ironic.
I was thinking the same thing.
He just decapitated Dooku, and he wasn't supposed to. He wasn't supposed to kill him.
He was also married.
Yeah,
it's not supposed to be.
and he doesn't want to spy on Palpatine.
Oh, he's saying that's where
he draws the line.
That's funny.
It's funny moral compass he has.
I think he's more about the. I have a question. Since you mentioned killing Count Dooku, why didn't he say that to Yoda? And with that information, they probably could have deduced that something was really wrong with Palpatine.
Well, because Kenobi was unconscious.
No, why didn't Anakin say something to Yoda? What he could have been like, hey, some weird. I have a question, Yoda. Weird thing. Count Dooku made me kill this. I don't know.
He was kind of
Palpatine literally told me to kill Count Dooku. Should I be worried? Like, what's going on? I feel like with that information, they could have deduced, like, oh, something's kind of wrong with Palpatine. He's spending too much time. He's on the Senate. He has so much power. Like, with that little information right there, could have not gone to, okay, Anakin, don't worry about it. We got this. We're going to handle Palpatine ourselves.
Well, the thing is, we don't have it included, but every Jedi after a battle files a report of the battle.
Right.
And when they get off that little transport, Obi-Wan is the one that goes to the temple after, and he says, the public needs a face. And so that's when he goes and he greets whoever, and then he sees Padme.
That's what I didn't like about that scene.
Yes.
I felt that scene was filling in for something later on in the movie or something like that, and I didn't like that scene. But now that you're explaining that, that's why that scene was bullshit. Why did you have him stay with the goddamn senators just for you to go full report? Because he thought he was the hero. He was like, you're the hero. And again, you have to, like, come on.
That's like the person who was conscious and have more information.
like, what the fuck was that?
And you deserve your glorious day with the politicians.
All right. Well, you owe me one, and not for saving your skin for the 10th time.
9th time.
Yeah, this is why I hated that scene. I remember watching this scene. I was like, something's wrong with the scene. This scene is going to come back. Because he was like, yeah, no, you're good. No, you go. I originally thought he was going to tell him to go, and then he was going to be influenced more by Palpatine because they separated or something like that. But now that you're saying that it's because of that, I'm like, what? That scene. They're like, okay. But okay, I understand what you mean. That was just one of my questions. Like, why didn't you tell him about what you clearly said to yourself? Like, I shouldn't be doing this. This is not with the ways of a Jedi. Like, what's going on?
Anakin's a very conflicted character. You see him behave in ways that he shouldn't when it benefits him in certain scenarios, and then when it doesn't directly benefit him, he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he pretty much has his own agenda, and then he uses that to make his moral decisions off of, as opposed to something that was more objective, like the Jedi Code.
Yes. He needed someone like Qui-Gon to guide him in a moment like this, because he's essentially telling Yoda, like, I have fear someone really close to me is about to die. As far as the council knows, the only person that's significantly close to is Obi-Wan.
Yep.
And so it's like he's being told to learn to let go of everything that you love or is attached to. And it's like, yeah, fuck, I can't even tell you guys I have a secret wife.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
Pregnant. Like, it completely went against with what he needed to hear at that moment, in which probably Qui-Gon or, I mean, I don't want to say even Dooku, because by this point Dooku's far gone, but someone that is, you know, more compassionate and not your atypical Jedi would have probably gave him, you know, more answer of more substance.
It's interesting too, because when he asked Yoda, like, what should I do? And Yoda gave him the answer. I felt like they should have been doing that with him from the first moment he got into this goddamn training.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
It's part of
like controlling his emotions. I
Yeah.
feel like they made no leeway at all. I guess maybe because Palpatine is just so powerful or something.
That's the point. He already had attachments.
Yeah.
I mean, he was 10 years old when he came into the order, so.
That's just why they don't
Hey,
take people.
if I'm Yoda, then at a certain point, I see him. It seems like they had so many red flags not to prevent this. It was just like he kept talking back to Obi-Wan. He literally did not follow any order. He talking back during a Jedi Council meeting. Like he's like, okay, listen, Anakin, I love you, but you gotta get out of the Jedi Council. You can't be a Jedi. Like,
did you see the looks that they were all cut?
Yeah, like what the fuck
it's
is
like
this?
they could tell. I feel like they illustrated like the dark side welling up, and they were like, something's off.
Yeah,
But to play God's advocate though, they've already seen Dooku transition over to the dark side, so they can't have another fallen Jedi in the sense of how the Senate would view the Jedi. Because everyone knows Anakin is the most powerful Jedi at this point, and if your most powerful Jedi is exiled from the Jedi Order, and it's not within his free will, then it questions the morality and I guess you could say the legitimacy of the Jedi Order. So you can point out all these red flags, but it's like the United States government, for example. We're known as this hegemon in the world, but as you know, the dollar starts to decrease in value, as we have inflation, as you know, we have these social, you know, uprisings. From the outside looking in, people start to question that legitimacy of the United States. It's the same thing here. Like, the Jedi Council it's not the army of the Republic, but they're the keepers of peace for the Republic. So if they're fraying inside their own order, how can the Republic trust the Jedi to protect them if they can't even protect themselves?
And that's why Palpatine makes the comment, they need you more than you think they did, or more than you know.
I thought it was because he was the chosen one, but kind of.
Well, yeah, but he's the most powerful. But that's related to that. But I also want to point out one of the most epic quotes from this movie that I really liked was when Yoda was speaking to him, and he had mentioned that fear of loss is the path to the dark side. And that's something that's like directly applicable to our lives too, because you think about when you fear a certain outcome, specifically around loss, you start to behave in ways that generally encourage that route to occur or push you away further from the path you need to be on. And so that's why I feel like Star Wars is one of the most poetic movie franchises in the sense like you could just watch it for like a sci-fi film and just enjoy it, but you can also distill real nuggets from it, and that was something that really stood out to me. Kind of like the very first exchange between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
It's a cowboy space opera,
basically. Nice. Also, the exchange that they have here with Yoda, that's a parallel to a later exchange, a later conversation when Dooku Palpatine finally reveals himself. They serve opposite roles because you think Anakin's wrestling with the same dilemma, but when he talks to Yoda, he's saying, release yourself of the attachments, fears the path of the dark side, fear of loss specifically.
Yeah.
And Palpatine kind of encourages him and he provides an answer to his fears. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of see like they're two sides of the same coin, light and dark. Mm-hmm. Yoda, Palpatine. And you see where Anakin eventually sways himself to. So I thought that was really interesting.
He hears what he needs to hear.
Exactly.
Even though it's souped up. I mean, granted, you know, there is truth behind it as far as Palpatine's ability to save himself from death. But I don't know if he's mastered it at that point. I don't even think he's mastered at this point. he might have in between the end of episode 1 to where we're at in 3. He may have mastered it because that's what Plagueis was doing before Palpatine killed him. But I don't know if he's mastered that ability yet to save himself from death.
Nice.
It's really very funny too as well. Once Anakin started talking back, everyone just side-eyed. Everyone side-eyed Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan
just shook his head like, "God, you fucking embarrassing me! God damn it,
we're doing this shit again."
Embarrassing me! God damn it. Yeah, that's funny.
You let your Padawan talk to you like that?
Everyone side-eyed. But it just really goes back to episode 2 when they're discussing security for Padme, and Obi-Wan's like, we will not go through this lesson again, and here we are 3 years later still going through the same lesson. It's like
the lessons though. Yeah, you good.
Jedi ignore red flags.
Huh?
Jedi apparently ignore red flags.
Yeah, exactly.
Fight!
Round 5.
You wanted to see me, Chancellor?
Yes, Anakin. Our clone intelligence units have discovered the location of General Grievous. He's hiding in the Utapau system.
At last.
Sit down. Leave us. You know I'm not able to rely on the Jedi Council. You must sense what I have come to suspect. They're planning to betray me.
I don't think.
Anakin.
I know they don't trust you.
Or the Senate. Or democracy, for that matter.
I have to admit, my trust in them has been shaken.
They asked you to spy on me, didn't they?
I don't know what to say.
All who gain power are afraid to lose it. Even the Jedi.
The Jedi use their power for good.
Good is a point of view, Anakin.
The Sith rely on their passion for their strength. They think inwards, only about themselves.
And the Jedi don't.
The Jedi are selfless. They only care about others.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith. He could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
What happened to him?
That's you, bitch!
Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
Oh my god. Palpatine kills me. Every time he says something in breadcrumbs Anakin, he just turns. He just turns. He just has to read it like 3 or 4 times. But it's so funny when he's telling the story and Anakin isn't able to piece together his true identity because he names Darth Plagueis by name, but he's very generic when he says killed by his apprentice. Naturally, I would want to know who the apprentice was. Maybe that's just me, Josh.
Is that part of their teachings? Like, as a Jedi, do you learn anything about that stuff? Like, anything about a Sith, or is it just like Jedi?
Well, you got to think, prior to the first movie in Darth Maul, they thought They thought that the Sith were extinct for 1,000 years. So, I mean, you would think if they did their due diligence, they would still learn about it because the dark side of the Force didn't go away.
Yeah.
They just thought that they didn't have people who were practicing the dark side.
Yeah.
But to what extent that they actually are educating the Padawans, the young Jedi, I have no idea. But you would think that that is something that they would do.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Because if he did learn, have some type of knowledge of like the Dark Force, then he would learn like, wait, who's this apprentice that you're talking about that killed Darth Plagueis? But it's interesting that he says a Sith story to him, like, and if he was to say like, "Oh, have you ever heard about this Sith story?" Like I thought he'd be like alarmed at that comment himself because he doesn't really learn about Sith stuff. He learns about Jedi stuff. But I mean, it's cool. But I really do like this scene, and I love how Palpatine basically gets ahead of the Jedi Council before they can do something about it. It's like, oh, you know, they don't like me. He's like, whoa, god damn, this guy's good. But I love how that happens, and he basically gives him a little backstory. It's like it's like the hook. He got the hook, and he put him in the scene. He got him. So I got you now. So now I can just reel you in. But I really like.
This is further evidence too to Dez's theory, even more so than the actual explicit conversation, because Palpatine's way of breadcrumbing and hooking Anakin to the dark side and kind of getting him further along is saving the lives of the loved ones. I don't think until this point that Anakin has said anything about Padme specifically. The dreams, perhaps, maybe behind the scenes, but I'm almost certain he has not said anything about Padme in that dream that he had with her dying in childbirth. Yeah. So that gives more credence to the idea that it is in fact him manipulating the Force to plant those dreams in his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. What'd you think, though?
It's like scene number 2, man. There's a lot in here to unpack. And I think the first thing I would like to unpack is, we talked about this in episode 1, where Plagueis is essentially when he was trying to clone Force-sensitive beings, the Force had responded by giving birth to Anakin. That is like a theory. And Palpatine hints at it here. It's like he could influence, not necessarily force, but influence the midichlorians to create life. And it kind of like you said, gives credence to the theory that the Force responded to Plagueis' attempt to clone Force-sensitive beings by creating Anakin. And it's like so subtly, because Anakin, I don't know if he knows, I'm pretty sure he does, since, you know, it was one of those things that that Qui-Gon presented to the council in episode 1. But I'm almost positive at this age, he knows that he has no father, that he was birthed by the Force. So it literally connects those two storylines, should you allow it. But then it immediately goes into, like you guys were saying, Plagueis' ability to, save people from dying. And that's one of the things that he mastered while he was trying to clone people that were Force sensitive. Like he would essentially, I forgot what the name of the, so Darth Tenebris, Plagueis' master, had another apprentice. And when Plagueis killed Tenebris, Tenebris' other apprentice comes to try and kill Plagueis, and Plagueis defeats the apprentice. I think it's Venemus, and so he's essentially doing all of this cloning on Venemus, and he's like almost damn near torturing Venemus. Like Venemus dies, then he resurrects, resuscitates him, and it's like he learns the power to, I guess you could say, he learns the ability to save himself from dying through that cloning expedition. So it's really interesting, like, to piece everything together. Again, it's an expanded universe, but there's no such thing as a coincidence. Like, all that stuff perfectly ties together to get you to this point where Palpatine is completing the Sith's plan, and it really just goes to show that as soon as Darth Maul really exposes himself to the Jedi, that's when 5D chess starts. And I think Palpatine has he's been beating the Republic's and the Jedi Council's ass in this game of 5D chess. Like if you really think about it, he's playing chess in multiple timelines simultaneously. He's playing chess within the Senate. He has this clean image that, affords him the ability to go to the Senate and say, "Oh, I need more emergency power." And like, yeah, sure, you've done nothing wrong. Here's more power. You get as much power as you need. Oh, you need more troops? I got you. Here's the money. So he has this perfect image with the Senate to where he does whatever he wants, but he's simultaneously playing chess with the Jedi Council to where they hate the idea that he has all this power, but they're so devoted to the Senate that they don't want to challenge his legitimacy in fear of fraying relations with the Senate. And then he also finds this perfect pupil from day one in Anakin Skywalker, and it's like he's like, okay, Anakin is who I want in the future, but he sees Dooku right here. He sees Dooku is on the fringes of the Jedi's contradictions and things of that nature, and he says, you know what, Dooku is great, but I'm still an apprentice at the moment. Let me finish out my apprenticeship to where I feel like I'm strong enough to kill Plagueis, and I get him right as I'm about to become the Supreme Chancellor. Oh, by the way, Plagueis is now dead because I electrocute him in his sleep, or Plagueis essentially survives and assassinated to me. He has this transpirator mask that he wears, and so Palpatine uses Force Lightning on the transpirator mask, and Plagueis dies like in his sleep right before Palpatine becomes Supreme Chancellor. Okay, I'm Supreme Chancellor now. I am now the sole Sith of the galaxy. Oh, okay. Dooku, you're on the fringes now. Your apprentice just got killed by my apprentice.
Yeah.
You're outraged. Come to me. And it literally happens that way. It's a natural progression. He's literally playing 5D chess in every way imaginable because it's just he's setting these traps for the Senate to fall into and for the Jedi to fall into, and then he just counters. And then once he has them to where all your pawns are gone, he's just going for the jugular. And that's all he's doing in this movie. Your strongest apprentice, y'all aren't consoling him the way he needs to be consoled. Let me do that.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all don't trust me? Okay, let me plant this seed before y'all plant it.
Yeah. And it's one scene in particular where you see he actually pulls the trigger on this.
Yes.
But that begs the question. So you have mentioned that there was multiple apprentices of Plagueis. So after Plagueis
only had one apprentice, and that was Palpatine.
So who?
What
was the rule of two instantiated?
Yeah, so the rule of two was erected by Darth Bane. So the Sith used to have like thousands of Sith,
like the Jedi.
Yes, and it was if you can kind of sense how Palpatine is continuously hinting at Sith are afraid to lose their power. So you have a lot of egotistical, emotional beings under one rule.
They're like the Orange Lantern Corps.
Yes, I don't know what that correlation is, but I'm pretty sure if you guys know. But essentially you have all these arrogant beings under one rule. When the Jedi won, Darth Bane came and said, okay, no more of this Sith army. We're going into the rule of two. There will always be a master and apprentice. And it more or less, I don't want to say it snowballs, but time progresses to where in the Star Wars line, because there's numerous Sith that are in the expanded universe. But as far as Star Wars relevancy, it starts with, Tenebris and Plagueis. And Tenebris is Plagueis' master. He's a Bith, and the Bith is like a species. And so he's a Bith, and when Plagueis is born, Plagueis is very, very, very force sensitive. Like he essentially manipulated this kid into killing himself. And so his parents were like more or less, I'm force sensitive, you're force sensitive. Regis known Darth Tenebris comes into the play, and Plagueis' parents essentially gives him to Tenebris at a young age. Mm-hmm. And so Tenebris more or less raises Plagueis, his real name is Hilo the Mask. He essentially raises him from birth like a Jedi would want to do to their Padawan. Mm-hmm. And more or less, trains them in every way fashionable. And so essentially they get to the point where Plagueis' story starts to where, Plagueis sets this trap and ends up killing his master. And at the time, Tenebris was training, Venomous. So the rule is similar to how Palpatine wants to do it, maybe a little bit more ambitious, is that you always create or you always train another apprentice should your first apprentice not be sufficient. Mm-hmm. And so you more or less are, it's like your fail-safe.
You have one in the wing.
Yes. And so even though Palpatine doesn't take that full force, he's always eyeing the next apprentice. And instead of him just flat out manipulating you over to the dark side, he finds that it's maybe easier to control their aggression and their natural greed for power by gradually letting them come over to the dark side through manipulation. How he did with Dooku, because Dooku had an apprentice named Asajj Ventress and the Clone Wars, but it was never Dooku seeking, I mean, maybe he hints at it in Clone Wars. I don't know. I don't know if he ever had this plot to, kill Palpatine, but Palpatine more or less did it the right way, where he allowed people to naturally discover, whether it be through manipulation, but to them, to us, it seems natural, their dark side power. And then he's like, okay, you tapped into it. You like that, huh? Well, this is what I can do for you. And then, they soak everything in because, the Sith have been extinct for thousands of years. And, the training that they go through to be essential, Sith apprentices is a culmination of all those things they learned over 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. So you have to think, if you're a Jedi and you know nothing of the Sith other than, their common practice, what their common practice was 1,000 years ago, there's a lot you have to learn. Yeah. And so you really only kill the master once you feel that you have learned enough and there's nothing more. And now you want to test yourself. You want to see, what more is there that the Sith can do, and you would prefer you'd prefer to dive into that realm naturally, as we saw Palpatine do.
Yeah. And that also explains why the Sith are always kicking the Jedi's ass, because they're not experienced with
with nothing that they can do. I mean, granted, Yoda is familiar with Force lightning, and even Mace Windu has tapped into the dark side energy, but there's really no common knowledge of what, like you said, what they can do to be prepared. Because even as they said in Episode 2, when Mace Windu was like, I think we need to tell the Council that our ability to use the Force has diminished, and Yoda was like, well, only the Sith know of our true weakness. Yeah. So literally 5D chess the entire time, and nobody. It's kind of hard to play 5D chess when you don't know what you're playing against.
Exactly.
Until it's too late.
It's hard to play 5D when you're only playing 3D.
Exactly.
You think you have all the pieces, but then there's 2 other dimensions that are missing.
Yes. You're AFK in another dimension, and Palpatine is just moving all his pieces around, and you're not even in the game. Like it is. I mean, that's literally what happened.
Question: Would these prequels be whether better or more satisfying if they actually showed Darth Sidious coming in contact with the Force and then killing Plagueis? Plagueis?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
No, because that story is written after these.
Okay.
Like that. Remember, that's what we were talking about from the first episode. Is that, and even like you guys have mentioned in this review, like there's so many breadcrumbs, and what George Lucas does a really good job of is not speaking in definites in every single situation. So because there is no definite, there's infinite possibilities or infinite storylines that you can, birth from this one scene. So, it's something that people don't like because you prefer to get the full story in one sitting, but because there's so many, possibilities, which is why I don't think people appreciated the prequels. I'm sorry, not the prequels, the Disney sequels, is because there was a definite ending to the Disney sequels. There's no storyline that you really care for. Even like when you look at what Disney is doing now, like the expansive stuff is right after Episode 6, or it's Tales of the Jedi, to where they're telling the story of Ahsoka Tano, and they're telling the story of Dooku's turn to the dark side. Like we're not hearing any expanded thought off of Rey or Ben Solo or Finn. Like nobody cares about that. Those are definite storylines, and their storylines ended at the end of Rise of Skywalker. And it's an unfortunate thing, because I think if Disney would have did it right, it would have been fertile ground for them to do so much more, even after Episode 9. If you wanted to do another trilogy, like you could have done 10, 11, 12, and it would have been perfect. But because they fucked that up so bad, I'm sorry, because they messed that up so bad. It's like we don't want anything to do with it. Like, yeah, we have there's a Disney show called The Resistance, but I mean, I haven't even care about that. Like, there's so much that George Lucas did with intent to where, like, for example, for 4, 5, and 6, you have Rebels, and it tells the story of the birth of the rebellion. But then you can come around and create Andor, which is what's currently out on Disney, and it tells the same exact story of the rebellion.
Just because Disney paying you. Because you just like named out like 5 different shows in the past 30 seconds.
Look, I enjoy my Star Wars, man, but it just allows you to do so much. And even with the books that are being written now and the comic books, they're all based on Empire, Galactic Empire Age, which is 4, 5, and 6. And then they're based on the 1, 2, and 3 prequels. Mm-hmm. So there's literally nothing, and mind you, Disney and Marvel are commissioning these comic books and these audible books or audiobooks and just books in general. Nobody gives a fuck about 7, 8, 9, and it is so unfortunate
because they created an ecosystem and then they're not focusing on that part either. Now, Josh, your original question about the inclusion of the Sith history, I don't think that would have been more satisfying for this movie. Maybe for tying loose ends, but I look at net positive, net negative, and I think that would detract away from the core point of this movie is Anakin Skywalker's descent to the dark side, and I think that is enough to constitute its own story. You could have that in a completely different movie if you want to, and it would be enough. But if you put that too much, if you try to combine both storylines in this one movie, it detracts if you don't do either one well. That's just my thoughts.
And the whole thing here is that if you're watching this as like a first time viewer, no one makes the direct correlation that Palpatine is Sidious. So if you're watching this as like a brand new, like I'm just entering, the Star Wars realm, if you're watching 1, 2, and 3, you don't know that Palpatine is Sidious. Like I'm pretty sure you can piece them together. Like if I can imagine if you're watching like your favorite TV show in the your winter finale or your season finale is like a cliffhanger, or you're like, damn, is Palpatine Sidious? And then you get in this movie like without a shadow of doubt, Palpatine is Sidious.
By the end of the movie too, I think it's pretty much confirmed.
Yeah, but I mean, like this movie 3 is it's Revenge of the Sith, but it's like I sent you like 2 years ago. It's more or less the Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Like this is where Order 66 is initiated. The Sith's grand plan is finally cultivated into what it was for when Plague is set out on this, and it's interesting. But again, I think like the novice Star Wars fan, I don't think they would have made that correlation immediately. And if you are taking the perspective that it was hinted in episode 2, then 3 is that season finale, or that you're no longer on the cliff. Like you're getting everything you need all at once, which is why I think episode 3 is a lot of people's favorite movie, because
exactly
you get a definite end to the Clone Wars and then the birth of the the Galactic Empire.
And I think the other thing I liked about this is what you guys kind of talk about, the difference between how Palpatine described like the little bit difference between the Sith and the Jedi. Mm-hmm. And I did like that. I feel like this movie is the closest explanation in the prequels about that. And I actually do like it because I felt like, as you said, as a new viewer, I think that's something that's kind of needed. For sure.
Get help, you're no match for him. He's a Sith Lord.
Chancellor Palpatine, Sith Lords are our speciality.
Except for Qui-Gon, I guess.